So I'm delighted to be joined again by Mary Rose from Hartland International School in Dubai. Welcome back to this chat, Mary Rose. Good to see you. How are you?
Lovely to see you. I'm very well, thank you very much. How are you?
Good. Yeah, a little bit of a sore throat. It sounds worse than it is, so excuse the voice today, but we'll crack on. Um, these short 15-minute episodes will focus on some real challenges for school librarians in the UK and across the world, including funding and resources, professional recognition and status, workload and unrealistic expectations, impact on students, and the future of school libraries. And I'm sure we can think of a few more as we go along. Today, we're going to focus on funding and policy change. So, I was really interested to see earlier this month that the UK government have produced a document called Supporting Reading in Secondary Schools for All Secondary Staff. And how many mentions of the school library and librarian do you think there are in that, Mary Rose?
There are zero. I mean, it's really extraordinary. And the one that they've made for leaders as well, also doesn't mention it. But they're asking, they go through and say how what access do pupils have to books within the school and local community. But at no time are they mentioning the skills of a librarian, how useful it would be, whether that actually schools need to they need to have a library in
Yeah. Yeah. But why do you reckon? I have my theory about this, why libraries and librarians aren't mentioned. What do you think is?
well, I have a theory as well, and I'm afraid it may be a controversial one. Surprised
Let's
it
go
isn't.
for it. Go on then. You share your
I
controversial one, and I'll
I
share mine.
think we suffer librarians and libraries from a very archaic view of who we are and what happens in a library. And
Okay.
I think that there's a not wrong, by the way, wonderful idea that a librarian is this lovely person who offers safety and security to those who feel anxious and who find school overwhelming, who put the right books in the right hands, who adults, and you can think probably of we've all read about celebrities or authors or whoever it is who will all say, I had the most wonderful librarian and it was she or he who got me to think about this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But that's brilliant and all well and good, but actually I think what that does and I mean it's really important that schools have that schools have somebody who is out with the normal run of day-to-day activities, who doesn't get involved necessarily directly in assessment data curriculum delivery, but who can do the holistic piece around that. And there's no question that that's really important,
Yeah.
and the well-being piece. But I think because of that, we are not seen as professional educators in the way that teachers are. And I think that means that nobody really knows what to do with us. So and you say a library, and then lots of people will say, oh well, we're all digital now, we don't need a library. And indeed, certainly I've spoken to colleagues who have very well, I mean, in Dubai we have very, very well resourced libraries by and large,
Yeah.
and we have very successful secondary schools. But lots of colleagues will say, well, actually, my non-fiction section, I'm not. We don't really have that because children are using online journals and articles and other ways to learn about stuff. And why would I spend the money that I've got on great books that maybe only get read once or twice a year?
Yeah.
So then the library becomes a place of reading for pleasure, because of course built within the curriculum, at no point does it say in the English curriculum children must learn research skills, they must learn how to use a library, they must learn how to find things out for themselves. They must have an understanding of self-directed inquiry. That's not what's needed. And children are saying, I want to get an A star, what do I do? And I've spoken to teaching colleagues who go, well, I just give them the 3 articles from JSTOR, I print it off and give it to them, and then say, read those, and that's all they need. And that's what will get them the results. But are we setting them up for
Failure.
university? Exactly, failure. Are they going to university able to negotiate the great big libraries that they're going to be using? The answer is no.
Yeah,
So I think, this is a very long answer to your question, but I think the problem is that there's a misconception of what a library and a librarian, a school librarian, does. I mean, how many times, Elizabeth, have people said to you, "Oh, lucky you, what a lovely job. Do you read books all day?" And you know, that is difficult. You know, we are battling a great ideal that is perhaps wrong.
And another, so my unpopular opinion is based on a blog post that I've just written, which is it's entitled something like if a lot of students get through school without ever going into a school library, why do we need them? And there is an element of those more adaptable, stretched students are able to do what you've just said, learn to pass a test. But even so, the libraries need to be there for those that can't afford the books at home or don't have access to online at home. They need, but even the kids that can get through by learning to pass a test still need the skills and the development that they're not getting if the school library is not there. And the reason is based on the fact that a lot of senior teachers don't understand themselves what school libraries are about. And I don't know whether anybody's explaining it to them. So how do we, we have this real anomaly, can't even say the word, anomaly, which is there's a certain group of school librarians who all know what it is that we should be doing. We've then got a group of school librarians who have come into the profession, and this is I'm not saying that this is wrong, because I did it the same way, coming into the profession because it's a term time only job. It works with school, it pickups, and it's about, I enjoy reading. There are not enough people who actually know what school librarians actually should be doing for us to be able to be saying to the senior leaders, well, actually, if you're looking for a great library, this is what you need.
I mean,
yeah.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I think particularly now where we are all entering this brave new world, dare I say, like the Wild West of AI, and people going, oh yeah, you can just get it on AI, it'll do your lesson plan.
Have you heard the podcast that I've just put out with Jen?
Not yet.
Jen
I'm waiting.
My goodness,
I can't wait to listen. I think that until you see, the problem is that it is lots of us don't understand it. Teachers need to understand it more. Librarians have a professional obligation. That is our job. We're in information. We deal with information and how you find it.
Yeah.
And actually schools should be saying, right, we need a librarian here to who we can upskill themselves, who's keeping abreast of these things because they've got the time, they've got the strategic overview, they've got the space to do it. It's their job. Who can develop, direct, be part of a way to integrate AI and to use it responsibly. And I'm afraid all too often it's being used irresponsibly by people who aren't really getting because they don't understand about how you research and how you find things out and how you don't plagiarize and all of those other things, there's all these lethal mutations happening, and really you invest in a professional librarian and his or her training in these things, and suddenly things become a lot easier. And we start thinking about things like professional integrity and how these tools can be used to accelerate and enhance learning, but not to divert or circumnavigate the important part, which is the thinking. And unfortunately, too often it's being used to speed up thinking, and you can't learn if you don't think.
No, which is exactly what Jenny was saying last night.
Yeah.
So, so it's lovely that we're coming together, which is great. Is there something? So, who should know about school libraries in government? Like we talk about the education department, don't we? Somebody somewhere should be responsible for school libraries and actually have an understanding. So, who is that
Well,
person?
that falls with the Department for Education. I mean, I'm quite sure of that. And you know, there has been though, and it's really interesting the conversations I've had both here in Dubai and in the UK with colleagues who, you know, we say, well, if libraries were part of the inspection framework, both with Ofsted or whoever other the inspectors are, then it would mean that people have to wake up and take notice.
Yeah,
But then the issue that lots of librarians have with that is, well, hold on a sec. Exactly what will that do, and how will it distill or prevent us from being actually the responsive, adaptive, flexible people that we are, who can respond to their school's needs.
yeah,
And if by making it, if by you know, we both want to be part of an inspection framework, but we're also concerned that if we are expected to do things that perhaps we don't believe in, or that perhaps we aren't necessarily our skill sets, or whatever else it is. So, you know, we don't want a one size fits all. I mean,
no,
you know, part of the joy of being a librarian is that we are what I have described previously as gentle agitators, but I think it goes beyond that. You know, I think being able to push boundaries and asking difficult questions within our school environment, from a strategic point of view, is a good thing. And
yeah,
being unconstrained, you know, we've seen what's happened by being constrained with inspection frameworks, that it becomes teaching to the test, that it
yeah,
becomes less and less about creativity, inquiry, flexibility, responsiveness, imagination, and more and more a very didactic and perhaps what people would see as a rather narrowing of the curriculum that doesn't fit everybody, because it is about tests, because it's about following an inspection framework, whether that's the school inspection framework or the children's inspection framework, and being out with the curriculum and out with the expectations. Perhaps I'm actually not sure that I believe that, to be honest, Elizabeth. I think it would help. I think having it as a requirement, and for someone in the Department for Education or Ofsted to say, yeah, you need to have a school library, and we're going to be looking to see how well you're running that thing. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It
And
doesn't have, you know, I think, do you know, we worry about being, you know, funneled into doing something that maybe not everybody can do. But I don't think we should worry about that. I think we should, just like the IFLA School Library Guidelines is an overview of what a great school library looks like. And you are, as a librarian, aspiring to meet some of that. You know, you can't do it all, it's not possible, but you're working slowly towards those um, aspirations, expectations. And I do believe that being in the Ofsted's um, light is a good thing, and it could be quite general. Obviously, if the Department of Education decide to do that, they need to talk to school librarians and understand what they are and how they work, and what are the criteria, like asking questions like, how does your school library work across the curriculum? Can I see evidence that your science teacher is working with the school librarian? Can I see
And
evidence
yeah,
that there's inquiry-based learning happening? It can be in different shapes and forms, but it's important, I
but
think.
also how does your library and librarians work with your school's strategic development plan?
Absolutely.
How are you adapting what you're doing in the library to fit with the aims and principles of your school and what it is you're about, and how therefore is that affecting the outcomes for children? Because really at the bottom line what this is about is ensuring that all children have access to the resources that they need to allow them to be successful adults. I was saying to these, I had some year 3 children in the library today, and I was saying to them, listen, telling stories is as integral to being a human being as eating, sleeping, and drinking. This is what it means to be a human. And without putting too fine a point on it, we need to have, they need to have access to as many ways to take those stories into them, in whatever form they come, and a library, be it digital, physical books, or with a librarian who is signposting the way to this way that they're going to fill themselves up with stories, i.e. information, facts, whatever it is that allows these big ideas to start happening and allows people to develop their knowledge and understanding of the world that they're in. That stuff is what a civilized society does. And
Absolutely.
and that's what we are. And we, this is not just about a sort of cultural thing. This is it's about the very stuff of existence, isn't it? I mean, I know I don't want to sound too highfalutin about it, but I do think that we need to start getting back to kind of the principles of why it is that we're there.
Yeah.
And then it becomes, oh yeah, okay, this goes way beyond just making sure that we've delivered the curriculum and then children can learn about the Great Fire of London.
So just to wind this up, because I think we've gone on longer than 15 minutes,
What's
is that it's important that the government starts to think about how and why school libraries exist and their value within education. And then Ofsted need to think about how they're going to inspect them. But while we're waiting for all those wonderful things to happen, if we have a secondary school head teacher listening to this podcast, there are steps that you can do to enhance your own school library and librarian. And, we would recommend the IFLA School Library Guidelines, and we would recommend looking at a framework of skills for inquiry learning called FOSSIL. And then reaching out to those school librarians who are achieving such wonderful, great things in their schools,
yeah.
and having those important conversations.
And I think also beyond that, Elizabeth, there are some brilliant head teachers
Yeah,
who have done this, who have made it work, who have worked out how to access the funding, how to ensure, and it's speaking to those people and finding them. And actually Great School Libraries, the campaign, and various, and everybody else that works in school libraries, CILIP, you, the School Library Association, all of us know secondary school and primary school head teachers who have made that happen.
yeah,
And I think hearing from your peers to understand how they've actually done it in practice is really important. And we can definitely put them in touch with people to show how that's happening. There are sources of funding. There are ways to get help to do it. And there are lots of people who are there to help that happen. So it's not impossible, is what we're saying.
it's absolutely not impossible. So thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for listening. We will be back soon. Take care.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.